You know, we often hear that every textbook is the same, and in some sense, it's absolutely true. All the basic institutions process covered in any of the leading textbooks. Uh, the problem is textbooks are filled with amazing a number of facts about institutions, process, and so on. And we need a way to make sense of it all and what we have done in this book is provide two frameworks, if you will, to help students better understand how all of it fits together, and then to make judgments about it. So Ben Page and I decided to write this textbook a very long time ago in 1996. It seems to have worked. Struggle has been in continuous use since then with multiple revisions. It's been used in colleges, universities, community colleges, AP courses all over the country. But ever since the first edition and all the editions since then, despite all the updating and refreshing, our basic approach has not changed one iota from the beginning, and it seems to have worked. Number one, we provide a model of how the American system works. We actually provide a visual model in each chapter in which we try to show a sort of a holistic explanation and of how government works, politics works, and how we can sometimes explain the very strange things that government does. To give you an example, if you look at the Voting Rights Act of 1965, if you hone in very closely, it's negotiation between President Johnson, the leaders of Congress, the leaders of the Republican Party. If you draw back a bit, as our model suggests, you look at the role of interest groups, how the parties change their position on civil rights. You look at social movements. If you back up even further, what we call the structural elements in our model, we look at things that don't appear in other textbooks, like the economy. As the American economy changed, African Americans, Blacks moved north into states with large electoral votes, important in presidential elections. Black soldiers came back from World War II and Korea, not understanding why they couldn't be full participants in the American political system. So what our model does is to sort of draw back and explain what government does by looking at this picture of all these influences. And we look at things in our book that no other textbook looks at in any detail, such as the economy, technological change, changes in world affairs where the United States fits, and the like. So explain the 2024 elections in the US, one would need to look at some of the young people's reaction to Israeli action in Gaza. Well, who cares about Gaza? It's foreign policy. It's away from the United States, and yet it deeply affected American politics. The other thing we do is, besides this structural model, we want students to be able to reach reasoned judgments about how well all of this is working. And the standard we use is democracy. That is to say, we ask, how democratic is the United States? Now, to many people, whatever the United States does is democracy. We say we're democracy, therefore what we do is democratic. But that doesn't give us a handle on whether we're more or less democratic than 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago. So what we do is give a very clear definition of democracy as a kind of a yardstick to measure what's going on in the United States against that. Now, people can care about other things besides democracy. Safety and security, for example, or the widespread availability of jobs, or some societies, think of Iran, want to rule by religious law and the like. Nevertheless, democracy has been extraordinarily popular around the world, and we've seen this spread of democracy. So what is it? Democracy is a system, we argue, in which the many rule. Now, when the Greeks first wrote about democracy, they lived in very small cities like Athens with no more than maybe 20,000 people, and the only participants were allowed were males, but they met in face-to-face assemblies, okay? How do we ensure that the many rule when we have to depend on representatives? In a country of 300 million people, we can't all sit down in a single town hall meeting. We elect representatives. So how do we ensure that representatives are doing what the many want? And so what we do is say, what does representative democracy have to look like in order for the many to rule? And we take them through, we call it popular sovereignty. Does government do what the people want? Do representatives respond to people? Is there political equality defined as one person, one vote? If one person has 10 votes and another has just a single vote, we would know that that is unjust. And is there political liberty? Are people free to vote, speak, publish, and assemble as they wish? So what we do is we have in each chapter, at the end of the chapter, and exercises throughout the book that ask, how democratic are we? And we allow students to reach their own conclusions, but that's an essential feature of that. How democratic are we? All the co-authors developed all the assessments, quizzes, journal prompts, shared writing. One of the secrets of the publishing world that students may not know about is that a lot of this stuff usually gets farmed out to third parties. We took this very seriously. There is not a single quiz question, there's not a single writing assignment that isn't integrated into our particular approach. We take the same approach to the use of graphs, maps, and figures. There's not a single one in the book that hasn't been updated, but is also must have a reason why it exists, how it is related to the subject matter. I'm very proud of my co-authors for leading this effort, David Doherty, Scott Minkoff, and Josh Ryan. They all teach the introductory American course on a regular basis. They're well versed on the challenges that students are having these days as higher education changes and so on. Of course, throughout the book, everything is updated. You know, we print edition and digital versions. The print version has been updated. But with the nice thing about the digital and Rebel digital version is these are updated every semester. We have a special feature that opens each chapter called Current Events Bulletins that focus on recent governmental and political developments that impact the subject matter of that chapter. We've also reorganized some of the fairly unique chapters. Most books don't have a chapter on social movements. We believe that that is so important to the development of American political system, everything from the labor movement to the civil rights movement to the conservative Christian movement, which have deeply affected American government and politics, and we focus on that. We also have a foreign policy chapter, which we've updated, which a lot of American government, what is our place in the world and what does it matter? The most significant update is our unique chapter 4. Because of our model, we look at the economy, technological and social change, and the like. It helps us determine how power is distributed in American society, what problems are generated by technological change and economic change, which work their way into the political process. So that's entirely updated. We've also significantly rewritten and updated the news media chapter to take account of the rapidly expanding influence of social media on American elections. This is something that political scientists and other scholars have had trouble catching up with. But people can see it all around them. Students know it. Students get most of their information from social media sites. So the notion of news media in the old sense makes not that much sense. So as you can see, my co-authors and I are very enthusiastic about this new edition and believe you will be as well.